I'm Ackneil Muldrow, retired and retired business executive. I came to Baltimore in 1961, and I taught school for several years. And then I left and went to work for a retail company called Montgomery Ward's company, and I was there in their management training program. I was the first African American on the East Coast in the program. And then from there, I decided after about 18 months I wanted to do something else, and I got a job with a commercial credit company.
Okay.
And that was a company that was the second largest commercial finance company in the country. But the interesting thing about only my initial interview, when I went there, the personnel manager who was interviewing me, he asked me for my resume. I said, resume? He said, yes, your resume. And I had learned how to spell resume, but I didn't know what it was. So at any rate, he said, well, Neil, tell me something about yourself. And that was at 10 o'clock. So at 12 o'clock, he told me he had to go to lunch. I was still telling him about me.
Yeah.
And because we talked about philosophy, educational background, and so forth, and outlook on life. And as a result of that, I got the job, and I was their first African American executive here in Baltimore. And then got an opportunity with the banking community, and they started an organization called Development Credit Fund, and we're making loans to small businesses to help socially and economically disadvantaged business persons.
Right.
So I headed that up for 22 years, and all told, over the 22-year period, we made over $39 million in loans to small businesses, and some of them are still operating. And over that time, Jordan, I was able to get involved in a lot of things in the Baltimore community. I probably served on more boards than any African American in town. How do I get access to the African American community? Neil knows somebody. Neil can help. I wanted to ask the question, are we representative African Americans? Are we representing the company on whose board I serve? If we're not, how can we get people in the organization? And it's not at the expense of anyone. It was simply that wherever there are opportunities. Because I saw other people on the board, who were not African American, recommending certain things that would benefit certain people. I don't think they weren't racist, but they happen to know. Well, I happen to know African Americans who have talent.
Right.
Why can't I recommend them? And so that is basically has been my philosophy everywhere I went. So those are the kinds of things we have to look for in life. When you go to bed at night, before you go to sleep, you have to ask yourself, did I help somebody today? If you didn't, better wake up early tomorrow and start. Okay. Growing up, I was very fortunate. As I said, I had both parents were public school educators. They were long-term educators. And they taught me, and they taught my late brother, that to do the best we can in life. And as I saw things happen in life, where do I have an opportunity to make a difference? And one of the things is when I was at North Carolina A&T in 1960, I was asked to participate in a sit-in. I knew that if there were 20 seats at the lunch counter, and I can only sit in 5 of the 20. I don't care if the others are empty, I still only can get 5. We had to stand in line to get to the 5, even though the other seats were vacant. And it made a difference in my life. So I looked at that and saw the change that occurred. And I said, I want to do that in life. I benefited. The president of North Carolina A&T was told to put all these students out. I was a senior. Put the students out who were sitting at the lunch counter because they were breaking the law. But Dr. Gibbs, Wilma T. Gibbs, said to the governor who called him and told him to put us out, he said, Governor, we teach our students how to think, not what to think. But where do you make a difference? How do you look back? You don't look for somebody to thank you. You don't look for accolades. You have this internal appreciation that I helped somebody today.
Right.
The only requirement is you have to help somebody. You can't stop. And we don't have enough of that. Well, the advice I would give is very difficult today because there's so many things going on in a person's life. But I would say, how do you reach out to your fellow man and woman? Having common goals of success. How do we progress? How do we measure our success? It's not by getting a new car. It's really not by getting a new house. But you internally, how do you feel that you're successful by contributing to society? Particularly your persons that look like you and live near you. Mm-hmm. Now, that doesn't mean you can't live in an integrated community.
Of course.
But when you have the opportunity to reach out and say, I would like to help this person.